If you like stories about crazy neighbors and landlords getting taken down, beating HOAs who try to force you to join so you lawyer up, with updates to both stories, then this video is for you. Also, all my videos are in podcast form. Search for the Austin Stories podcast or check out the link in the description for a crazy HOA Karen story. Stop complaining about your neighbors? Okay, sure, posted by the Angry Arcanist with updates. Now, that story is very recent, and the told you so effect is never as sweet as this was. I've moved in an apartment with a roommate last summer. When we first came in, the biggest part of the sale was the fact that the apartment was freshly renovated and soundproof. Now, this one is important, and you'll see why. So when we got in, my roommate immediately fell in love with it, and I was too. When we moved in, we were very careful not to bother anyone, as we wanted to quickly have a good relationship with our neighbors. Oh, did you see the new neighbors? They only move during the day. They don't make a sound during the night. What nice people, kind of deal. And we can safely say it worked. What we did not know, however, is that we were only 3 renters when we first came in. Us on the floor, another family upstairs on the opposite side, and another one on the 3rd floor, with one empty apartment between us. Turns out the soundproof statement was accurate, but only in regards to the inside to outside situation. When our upstairs neighbors moved in, it was a dang nightmare. Sound from 5 a.m. to past midnight, 5 days in a row, dropping stuff, speaking loudly, yelling, or walking in their apartment with shoes on. Out of frustration, on the 5th day, I walk upstairs and meet my neighbor at midnight. I ask them to cease their activities for the night. I have work in the morning and I cannot be kept up all night. I understand that they were freshly moved in and they might have had a tight schedule, but midnight was too late to be moving stuff. He didn't reply and closed the door on me. I go downstairs and the sound starts over again. I notify my landlord and he tells me he'll handle it and apologized for the situation, explaining to me that my neighbor was just moving and that he probably didn't understand what I was saying because of a language barrier. The neighbors were extremely loud. I know a lot of Karens will use that as an excuse to shower their neighbors with hate, but when I say loud, I mean it. There was no stop to their loud noises. It seemed like they couldn't be bothered to hold something without dropping it, or jumping up and down on the floor, or purposefully banging the bed frame against the wall when doing stuff. I recorded the event and even installed microphones in my home jacked to my computer, activating and recording every time there's a strong vibration in the house. Over 98 events on Monday, February 14th. I was livid. I sent that to the landlord and explained that this cannot continue. First, the apartment was poorly soundproofed, which meant that we were hearing every dang sound all the time. Second, we had notified the neighbors about the situation, and they've ignored it. I have notified the landlord to awaken them to our situation. I report the issues several times, and even advised my landlord that there were very heavy-sounding thuds coming from upstairs, which worried me. He answered with, "Stop complaining about your neighbors already. I have other things to do." I have answered, "Understood, sir. Please be advised that this will be my last communication and action to help you in that regard." You know when I said I heard loud bangs? Turns out, our upstairs neighbor was doing bench press lifting in his living room, and the heavy thuds I kept hearing was him dropping his weights on the ground. I had warned my roommate about removing anything that she didn't want broken from the living room, and lo and behold, 4 days later, the first crack appeared. Then another. The floor was giving up. I moved the couch out of the way and moved the TV and consoles into the bedroom. Fast forward to 3 days ago. After another series of loud bangs, I heard a loud crack, followed by an "oh crap," followed by very loud noises. I went to the living room to see my neighbor on the ground with several actually gruesome injuries due to the fact that he just went through the floor and brought his bench and weight rack with him. I called an ambulance and the police. The police asked me if I reported the issue with my landlord, which I could confirm due to my communications being made via email. I sent everything, and I am now, of course, filing to break my lease due to uninhabitable dwelling. The landlord came in yesterday and just proceeded to explode. Told me that I should have made him aware that my neighbor was doing dangerous things, to which I answered I had notified him about the very loud sounds and he never investigated, and that he also ordered me to stop complaining about my neighbors. It was not my responsibility to go out of my way to protect his assets if they are unwilling to cooperate with me. My neighbor's roommate and I are now residing in a hotel until we can find a new place to live. We are now also looking towards adding a bit more salt to the injury by maybe filing for criminal negligence against both our landlord and the neighbor. The first because the apartment was apparently having some flaws, and the latter for endangering us. Had I not caught up on what caused the sound earlier, me or, God forbid, my roommate could have been under that. Anyway, it was a fun week, and I do enjoy the accommodations of my hotel. I never went to a 4-star spa-included hotel before. Turns out, the chocolate on the pillow is a lie, and I'm very disappointed about that. Updates. As I have advised to a few commenters, I followed up with my roommate and she did not take pictures of the event. She got a bit mad that I asked considering what had just happened and questioned my priorities. I then explained that our Reddit story got a lot of attention and some people in the comments requested some visual proof. I will spare you her answer. I will just add that it's okay not to believe the story based on my word alone. If people actually didn't question it, I'd be worried. When I posted this story, my only intent was to share my experience, and I thought, malicious compliance, neat. If there was a horrible landlord, bad neighbor Reddit I would have found prior to submitting this story, probably would have went there instead. I'll also add that I'm not an expert or an engineer. How and why something like weights and the like would cause part of the floor collapsing, I cannot say. Was there a structural damage prior? Was there water damage that was never addressed, just covered up? Was the structure just not as sound as I believed it was when I got in? I can't say. I understand some of you might have worked in construction and never have experienced such an event or have actual reasons to suspect a lie due to personal and professional experience. Once again, you can and should question anything on the internet. I just hope you also apply that kind of skepticism, and I mean wanting proof or the opinion of an actual expert prior to making a decision, to more than just Reddit post. For those who made us laugh and those who have spoken to us, who have been encouraging and constructive, people who actually gave us advice, I thank you very much. It was very nice of everyone, and I wish you the best. Update again. My brother has agreed to take the case and look at the options. We're not feeling very vindictive, and our insurance are going to cover most of the cost, so we might file for negligence. I'm not a lawyer myself, I don't know the terms in English, but basically, the landlord should have had his building inspected before renting, which was apparently not done. The landlord has apparently calmed down after the events and has apologized for everything. He has scheduled a visit from an inspector to check the integrity of the apartment and the cause of the damage that would have allowed a human and exercise equipment to go through the floor and ceiling. In exchange for not pressing charges, he has agreed to reimburse all the money we have invested into the rent, our stay at the hotel, and a little extra as an apology, and the guarantee to either repair the apartment and soundproof it properly, or if it is not an option to go back, he will relocate us onto another of his buildings, which are a lot better than what we had, reduce our rent quite significantly for as long as we stay, with papers to back his offer up, and a full year of free rent. This is actually quite generous in the current rent market. I'm leaving the final say to my roommate. On my end, I wasn't injured, she was not, and this could have been just a freak accident. Yeah, the landlord's a bit of a butt, but let's be honest, we've all had worse landlord-wise. Plus, even if we take him up on his offers, the upstairs neighbor might be looking for some severe reparation. I mean, he did get injured after all. But we would be happy to hear about your opinion. What would you say? Would you take this further or just take the refund, plus the full year, rent-free year, and then low rent for the years to come? Final update. After a long time deciding what to do, we have opted to take the landlord's offer. However, we made it clear that we could not live under the same people if the soundproofing was not at the very least improved. We went to my brother's office and met with a colleague of his who had multiple documents for us to sign. One of them for the promise of low rent, which the landlord wanted to offer $250 off the market price. We negotiated it up to $300, was to be applied on all our leases. We have also agreed to the reimbursement of 6 months of rent, which will cover us for the next year and then some, plus the free year. We received about $5,000 each, and the landlord has agreed to cover all of the costs of the hotel we and our parent had to pay. We might be moving back into our apartment by the end of the month. It's a bit disappointing as we kinda wanted to try another place, but from what I understand, there's a very good chance our neighbors are not moving back on their end, so it might just be back to the ideal scenario. There will be very heavy renovation done and a thorough inspection of the structure before we move back in. I just want to thank everyone for their kind words, their jokes and encouragements. They have very much helped both of us and got us to smile a bit more. For the others, I do not wish anything less. I just hope you're doing well, that you are safe. I appreciate the effort of those who were still able to voice their disbelief while being respectful. And for the others, well, you know, it's the internet. What are we gonna do? I believe OP here because I actually used to be into powerlifting at novice level, and I have actually lived in an apartment once and had a bench press. I was really scared to use it, even lightweight, because damage to the floor and under it. You can do all these lifts, but they need to have proper flooring under them, the big rubber stuff, really durable, and you don't want to do it on an upstairs level. So yeah, this neighbor doing the benches was crazy. I mean, the benches itself is one thing because you always have a lot of force from like a couch or something spread out that people sit on, applying to the ground, but dropping weights on an apartment that isn't ground level, that's just so stupid. This is clearly an idiotic move on the neighbor's part. Anybody could see this. So OP, way to go on handling it. Thank you for the updates, and I wish you all the best. What do you think? Let me know. I beat the HOA. I won't be forced to join. Go Lawyers. Posted by Danakius. So, earlier this month, I purchased a property in real estate lien auction. The property was in a voluntary HOA that had 100% membership. My attorney looked into the situation and drafted a proposal and sent it to the HOA via registered mail. He drafted up a proposal agreement with the HOA with the following conditions. First off, the property owner has unrestricted access to any community-owned roadways, gates, and so on necessary to access his property. Now, this does not constitute joining the HOA also. The property owner will have to pay a figure monthly to the HOA to contribute to the non-government-owned infrastructure at his discretion. The amount is non-negotiable and not legally required. It's merely an acknowledgement that the assets exist and have cost for their upkeep. Now, the property owner will not be held to any HOA standards and does not and will not get any voting rights in the HOA also. Any further attempts to get the property owner to join will be considered harassment. Now, cashing of these attached checks constitutes agreeing to these terms, and the HOA will provide any necessary access codes for the property owner to use for visitors, contractors, and so on. They received it and signed for it. That day, the harassment from the HOA stopped. A week later, their attorney sent back a response. Danakius. The HOA board has met. They do not appreciate your unneighborly attitude and are not agreeing to your terms. However, they acknowledge that your claim to unrestricted access to your property may have legal merit if the issue is taken to court. I have been instructed to give you a gate access code attached below. You will not be given a key fob to the gate, as it would give you unrestricted access to their clubhouse. Furthermore, they are notifying you of the following. The roadway and sidewalk are both HOA property, and they reserve the right to remove any illegally parked vehicles or other property. This is, however, a legal acknowledgement that you will not be held to their community standards. They are also requesting some leeway regarding harassment, as community notices may inadvertently be delivered. Finally, they are returning the check uncashed. Signed, the HOA attorney. I'm not quite understanding how. This doesn't constitute them agreeing to my terms, though. They are giving me everything I want and are turning down my gift towards the upkeep of the road and gate. Updates in the comments. Sean BZA posts this and OP replies with more. He says, you have access, so you can give the key code out to anybody who wants to visit you or has to come to you. So you cannot park on the road or the sidewalk, so it's time to put up a nice fence up on the edge of your property with the no trespassing signs on it, paint a yellow line at the border with your driveway and the sidewalk, and keep the number of the HOA towing company, should be posted by the gate, in your phone to call for towing if anybody parks by the driveway, plus a camera to cover this area as well. They change the gate code immediately, you sue them, especially if you were not communicated in this in advance. Also, invite all of your immediate neighbors over for a welcome party to make yourself known as the good person in the area. And OP replies, yeah, the only thing you left out was a gaudy neon paint job on the house and an inflatable hot tub in the front yard and 8 non-functioning vehicles in the front yard. I mean, as long as I'm not blocking the driveway, right? So I put in a call to a solar company to come out and to do a quote on installing solar, completely not allowed by the HOA bylaws. So gonna have to do it for sure. Now note, I'm not gonna finance it, no contract and so on. That's how those turkeys make their money. All joking aside, today I mowed my lawn, started at 7 a.m. before it got too hot and knocked that out. Since I measured twice, I'm going to cancel my long-term parking for my RV and move it there since my driveway is plenty long enough. Plus, I can sleep in the RV while I'm getting the house into livable shape. I'd throw a party, but the big issue with that is that it's not livable yet, as in, it's a toxic disaster and I can't live in it. I have a call for a 12-foot dumpster to come in as well, and the trash company is going to drop it in the driveway. I'm also in the market for the tallest and ugliest ham radio tower I can get. No actual interest in using though, just in case. Sean replies, keep the neighbors happy, just put solar on and enough LED spots all aimed to cover the property without spill that the street lights look dim by comparison. Dumpster on the lawn, not on the street. You can fix the lawn after it leaves, citing the reason it is on the lawn as the HOA busybodies not wanting it on the street for some reason, so lawn it is. No need for a tower, just look at the approved color list and paint just a few shades different, not garish, just enough to distinguish from the surrounds. Follow with making the contrasting colors different from the rest and put a nice door trim color in. Subtle, but it works so much better. Oh yes, first find the boundaries and mark them off with some post and danger tape and follow up with that orange construction temporary plastic fencing because you're going to be working there and want to not damage the HOA property in any way. Safety first. Nothing ticks off the busybody Karens more than subtle, especially if you're keeping within the letter of the law for the township you are in, but not the HOA ones. And OP replies, once I move in, I'm getting an above ground pool because the HOA rules say no. Commenter Lil Bit Evil says, I don't see an attorney using unprofessional language as in unneighborly attitude. I'm doubting it was an attorney who responded and impersonating one could cause trouble. I'm sure your attorney is going to have some fun, especially over the roads and sidewalks part. OP replies, screw them either way. They stopped harassing me about joining and hopefully took the hint. In reply, I'm betting since it's a voluntary HOA, the street and the sidewalk are still city easements. Your local clerk can confirm if you show them any documents of the HOA trying to claim ownership, and then the city will have legal grounds for action. OP replies, the legal status is convoluted. It's not mandatory, but they only sold the properties to people who signed the HOA documents. One of the first documents they force you to sign is a right of first refusal when selling the property, as in, you are giving the HOA the right of first refusal. In simple terms, if the person you're selling to doesn't want to sign the HOA documents, the HOA can instead buy the property back for the same price you're offering it for and then resell it themselves, but only to someone who signs the documents. Instead of doing all that, they can just butt their heads in and threaten the buyer with blocking their sale unless they sign the HOA documents. This has kept HOA membership at 100%. Until I came around. I bypassed all of the signing of the HOA by buying the property at a sheriff's auction. The state gave no craps about the contract. All they cared about was the court orders to sell the property to repay the lien holders. Holy cow, someone impersonating an attorney would be insane. Now this is an example here of someone just knowing the rules and dropping the hammer in saying, hey, I know this isn't the HOA, I'm not going to stand for it. Here is a 7 to 8 stipulation letter saying, here's what's up, I'm going to even give you money to help this cause. And they get written back by a greedy HOA that says, all right, we're just going to legally do what we have to do here. We're not going to go the whole 9 yards for you. We're not even going to cash your check. We don't want that looming over our head that you have just paid us this money. Because this is our area, we own this place, and you don't. We're just going to tolerate you being here. OP, way to stand your ground, and funny little mentions in the comments there of what you could see happening and what you want to do next. Way to go, OP. Let me know what you think. HOA exposed for extortion, time to lawyer up. Click the video on your screen, you do not want to miss this crazy story, and I'll see you there.